Hey everyone, Ashley Mailloux here with the Daily Racing Forum. Santa Anita had a short hiatus, but racing returns this week. And on Saturday, race number 9 is the Grade 2 Californian at 1.125 miles on the dirt for 4-year-olds and upward. And we'll take a look at the field top to bottom. It is a compact field of 6, but kind of look at the bookends here. You got 2 big names. Defunded draws the rail, 4 to 5 morning line. And on the outside, we'll see Royal Ship, who's been a fun horse to watch throughout the years. He's now 7 years old, only has that one appearance that was lackluster this year, but it was on the turf. So we're seeing him on the dirt for the first time since October. He's 3 to 1 on the morning line, and he's got his go-to rider, in the irons, Mike Smith. So as I mentioned, a compact field, but the talent is certainly there. Now, starting with the number 1, Defunded. Second earlier this year in the Pegasus World Cup Invitational, really started his year on a good note as a 5-year-old. He was second best, art collector, ended up running a huge performance, won by over 4 lengths. But I thought that kind of stamped Defunded as more of the real deal. I know he had a grade 1 win before that, but to me, he showed a new dimension. And then more recently, tried 1.25 miles in the Santa Anita Handicap. And we'll actually take a look at that replay. He was the speed in here, as to be expected, was forwardly placed. He's the number 5, and he's going to surrender the lead late in here. The top 2 end up being Stiletto Boy and Proxy in the end. You can see Stiletto Boy with that white blaze on the outside out of post 4, just able to run him down in those final stages. And go down the page, he's gotten beat at the 1.25 miles distance twice. It might be a little bit of a distance limitation, so him cutting back to 1.125 miles should really suit him well on Saturday. We know the talent's there. We know that he loves Santa Anita Park, so excited to see him at the shorter distance. The number 2, Kiss Today Goodbye, going to be a long shot on the tote board. The Connections have had a really successful meet, 27% from a limited sample of 15 runners. And this is a horse that has tried the turf in his last 2 outings. He's tried to close from the clouds in both of them and has been unsuccessful. Now you go down the page and you look at his dirt races. His most recent performance in terms of an on the board finish was back in the Grade 3 Native Diver back in November of 2021 at Del Mar, and that's only a Grade 3 event. Obviously, these waters are deeper. Royal Ship has, faced him in the past and has finished way in front of him, so he's going to really need to step it up. And he's another one. He didn't make many starts in the last year and a half. Looking at 2022 and 2023, only 3 starts combined. So we'll see what he does getting back to the dirt and making his first start since February. The number 3, Mr. Impossible. This one trained by Simon Callahan, was a winner last out at Golden Gate. Actually had a really nice performance going 1.16 miles. Was able to take them gate to wire. And you start to go down the page and you try to make what you can out of his past performances. He did have a really extended layoff at one point, but his best races have been when he's been forwardly placed. In a race like this, Defunded has a natural gate speed, has the inside draw, and I just think in some ways is a bit quicker than him. So Mr. Impossible, I would expect to be forwardly placed in this race, but he's really going to have to step it up because you get on the page. He's only got a couple, cracks at the graded stakes level, actually one, I should say, and another try in the Lure, an ungraded stake, and he hasn't fared too well, but we'll see what he's able to do. He's also going to get back on the dirt. We haven't seen him on the dirt since Del Mar back in November. The number 4, Midnight Mammoth, was a runaway winner last time out of the 1.16 miles locally at Santa Anita. Faced that interesting group of runners overall. I thought it was a good field looking at who he beat and the way that he beat them, but another one that's going to need to take a step forward. He's fared well in some small stakes in the past, and he's only 4 years old. So, kind of looking at the other horses in here, they got some age on him and some development, but I do like the direction that he's trending. As I mentioned, I just think when you look at his most recent win, very impressive. Another one, though, he took it in front end fashion, and there should be some pace from the inside in here. So we'll see what Midnight Mammoth can do. Kyle Frey has the call and was aboard him in that most recent outing. The number 5, Parnelli, we'll take a look at his most recent race, which was back on January 28th in the San Pasquale. He's the number 3 in this field. And just looking at him in the stretch run here and looking at how he ran, I thought he was a bit even. He needed to find more here. Hopper ends up finishing second in here at 7 to 5. And the horse is kind of running late as Newgrange, was able to, make a late run on the outside. And I just felt like Parnelli hung a little bit in here and didn't just have enough. Now, you go down his past performances. He's had some really nice ones locally at Santa Anita. His best numbers have been over the surface, but he's going to be tested for class just with those two big names in here. I do think he's eligible to improve, though, just making his second start since November. And the 1.1 miles distance, in terms of his performances, at least most recently, he tried the 1.1 miles, and it was his most successful performance at the distance. Victor Espinoza is going to stick with him. So we'll see what he can do. And then rounding out the field is the number 6, Royal Ship, who he's been really lackluster in his last 3 efforts, but he's been able to fire on the big days. And we're going to go take a look at his most recent win, which was in the Grade 2 San Diego Handicap at Del Mar. And this is what I'm talking about. It was a stacked field in here. He beats Country Grammar. He beats Stiletto Boy. And he ends up being the number 9 in here. The number 6 is Parnelli. The number 2 is Defunded, who will face both of them. And he just ends up being much the best. So, while his recent races, first off, they're not too recent, a lot of them, and they're a little lackluster. This is just a horse that he's able to kind of score these upsets. In this race, he was 9-1. He got a 102 Beyer speed figure, and he was able to just sit off the pace. And I think I envision him getting a good trip in here. I've mentioned there are a couple horses that have early foot, and they're all to his inside. He gets that outside draw, which I think is very advantageous for him, because if he's going to sit that trip just off the pace, Mike Smith's going to be able to get a pretty good position out of the gate. So, I mentioned the lackluster performances. You can kind of draw a line through his most recent effort. It was on the turf, and I think his form just kind of trailed off in the fall. So I'm excited to see what he can do as a 7-year-old. He's got a lot of 6 furlong drills under his belt, which I like to see. They're stamina enhancing. I think they're really going to prep him for a 1.1 miles on the dirt. And I'm just expecting to see a very different horse than we saw in his last couple outings. So that is the field of 6. With all that said, when you kind of look at the distance of the race and recent performances, I don't like eating chalk in this sorts of races, but I had to go with the number 1, Defunded, as my top selection here. I think when you look at what he's been able to do so far this year and even late last season, he's kind of stamped his horse as a really, really nice older horse now. And I mentioned 1.25 miles, I think is too far for him. So the 1.1 miles distance should be perfect. I also expect Royal Ship to fire a really big effort, just getting back on the dirt. He's been training well. And as I mentioned, he's one that is able to kind of pop big performances, maybe when people aren't expecting it. And then from there, Parnelli does have that stakes kind of efforts under his belt. I thought he most recently raced very well in the San Pasquale, but he'll still need to step forward, I think, to finish in front of the other 2. And then to round it out, with the number 3, Mr. Impossible, who's just kind of, coming in here off a good effort. But I think the big 2 are here are Defunded and Royal Ship. And just with the recency angle, Defunded is who I landed on in the Californian. Good luck.